You're listening to the Music Educator podcast with your host, Bill Stevens, the 21st century music educator man.
Podcasting from beautiful Leesburg, Virginia. Welcome to the Music Educator podcast, bringing you the latest tips, tricks, and practical advice you can use tomorrow. Here's your host and fellow music educator, Bill Stevens.
Hello and welcome once again to the Music Educator Podcast. My name is Bill Stevens. I will be your host for today, and I'm so excited that you could join me today. We're approaching the end of the summer, kind of getting ready for the new school year, little by little. And in today's episode, Season 4, Episode 33, we are going to talk about advice for learning skills with the Circle of Fourths. Let's do this. Seasoned educators often provide valuable tips and recommendations for warm-ups. The real challenge is to not allow a daily warm-up turn into something that is so mundane that the student's brain processes start to flatline. Today we're going to introduce ideas for warming up your band, starting with the Circle of Fourths. Before we get started, please consider referring to Robin Lineberry's book, Strategies, Tips, and Activities for the Effective Band Director, targeting student engagement and comprehension. I found this book to be invaluable and serves as an excellent reference for today's episode. More ideas. If you have read Ed Lisk's book, The Creative Director, Alternative Rehearsal Techniques, you have learned that the book teaches us that students can achieve more when provided a specific sequence of steps toward a well-defined goal. Lisk's core method for this approach of teaching includes the Circle of Fourths. Although we're not going to thoroughly cover anything in this method, it is also wise to add this book to your list of pedagogical readings. The Circle of Fourths. To start this process, begin by first posting graphics of the Circle of Fourths, or otherwise called the Circle of Fifths, to your music room walls. Posters and PDFs of the Circle of Fourths are generally easy to find online or within method books. In lessons, the next step is to use the Circle of Fourths graphic in your lessons. As a music educator, you want to be able to clearly explain the order of the flats and sharps as they pertain to their key signatures. Guide students to an understanding of how the keys progress from one to another. And most importantly, clearly explain what an enharmonic is. From this foundational point of understanding, you can incorporate the Circle of Fourths in your warm-ups by adding theory lessons to your procedures. This will help keep things fresh and mentally stimulating in your warm-up rehearsals. Adding activities. Keep things simple as you start to introduce the Circle of Fourths. Begin by verbally saying the name of the keys in order based on flats or sharps. For example, starting with the flats, I would progress from the key with 0 flats to 7 flats. That's C with 0 flats, F with 1 flat, B flat with 2 flats, E flat with 3 flats, A flat with 4 flats, D flat with 5 flats, G flat with 6 flats, and C flat with 7 flats. In contrast, starting with the sharps, I would progress from the key with 0 sharps to 7 sharps. For example, C with 0 sharps, G with 1 sharp, D with 2 sharps, A with 3 sharps, E with 4 sharps, B with 5 sharps, F sharp with 6 sharps, and C sharp with 7 sharps. Figuring out keys. Once the ensemble is capable of understanding the basics of the order of flats and sharps, what scales have which accidentals, understanding the basics of scale degrees within the scale, which also includes solfege, then they need to be able to determine the keys of major scales from a visual standpoint. For instance, for sharp keys, the last sharp in the visually represented key signature is the 7th scale degree on T in solfege. Go up 1/2 step from this last sharp, and the name of the note that is on the line or space is the name of the major scale. For the flats, The last flat is the fourth scale degree, or fa. Count down 4, 3, 2, 1, or fa, mi, re, do to determine the name of the major scale. Another option is to look at the second to last flat in the key signature to determine the name of the major scale. However, you should note that this only works with flat scales. The next logical thing is to be able to determine the key signature when you know the name of the key or scale. To do this, first determine if the scale is a flat or sharp scale. Remember that the key of F is the only flat scale that does not have flat in its name. Second, use the musical alphabet to build the scale up without accidentals. For example, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and for good measure, A. Next, if the scale is a flat key, recall that the last flat is the fourth scale degree, or fa. Add a flat to the fourth note, which is D flat in this case. A, B, C, D flat, E, F, and G. Now, using the order of the flats, remember this is B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, C flat, and in some cases F flat. Simply go in order and add the flats until you reach the fourth scale degree. In this example, it will be A flat, B flat, C, D flat, E flat, F, G, and A flat. Now, if the scale is a sharp key, remember that the last sharp of the key is the seventh scale degree, or T. So you will add a sharp to the seventh note, which is G sharp in this case. So A, B, C, D, E, F, then G sharp, A. Next, using the order of the sharps, which is the opposite of the order of the flats, F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, A sharp, E sharp, and B sharp. Simply add the remaining sharps in order until you reach the seventh scale degree. In this example, it will be A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, and A. Guidelines for figuring out transpositions. Figuring out transpositions can be a confusing subject for some if you don't keep things simple. Here are some basic guidelines for doing just that. C instruments are concert instruments. That means that when they are asked to play the A concert major scale, they play their A scale. In other words, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. F instruments, such as French horn and English horn, play a perfect fifth above the concert key. This means to subtract one flat or add one sharp. Those players will look to the circle of fourths, and A concert will transpose to E concert. B-flat instruments, such as trumpets, clarinets, and tenor saxes, play a whole step above the concert key. This means to subtract two flats or add two sharps. Those players will look to the circle of fourths, and A concert will transpose to B concert. And finally, E-flat instruments such as alto saxophones and baritone saxes play a major sixth above the concert key. This means to subtract three flats or add three sharps. Those players will look to the circle of fourths, and A concert will transpose to F sharp concert. Work through with students. Work through the content with your students. Do this by speaking through the process of each key. Be sure to have graphics easily visible to your students. Choose a key such as E flat major. Speak through it such as E flat major has three flats, B flat, E flat, and A flat. Once you feel students understand how to transpose from concert pitch to their instrument, try some of the circle of keys strategies. Number 1, play around the circle. Start with play around the circle by playing a unison C concert in whole notes. After one measure, move to concert F, then B flat, then E flat, and so on. Be sure students know how to get through the enharmonic keys. Start simple with long tones, but then extend to varying note values, rhythms, meters, and articulations. Number 2, play partial scales in each key. Playing in small scale portions can help illustrate relationships within the circle of fours while at the same time helping students learn tetrachords, which are the first 4 notes of a major scale. It is recommended at this stage to avoid using formal notation, but rather use verbal instruction, call and response, Kodály hand signs, or any other method. Carefully transition each partial scale sequence by leading it to the next key. Number 3, play 2 adjacent keys simultaneously. Split up the band into 2 groups. Decide on a chosen melodic figure that is based on an open 4th or 5th relationship. Start by playing in these 2 keys. Consider concert B flat and F. Use this opportunity to have students work on beatless tuning and any other musical element. Number 4, build chords. Listening skills is one of the big list items music educators set out to improve on within their ensembles. When directors work on chord qualities, students learn to improve their listening. For example, Linda Berry identifies you should have 3 groups assigned to play in the keys of C, E flat, and G to hear a minor triad. Have groups move around the circle of fourths to hear each of the other minor triads. Consider building any series of triads, 7th chords, and other tonal sonorities while applying balance, blend, and tuning concept analysis. Number 5, target specific chords from the concert repertoire. Search in your concert music for a problematic chord to analyze, then reduce it to its basic root position. Use the previous practice number 4 build chord exercise to listen around the circle of fours. When the ensemble arrives back to the original key and is sustaining the chord with a beautiful sound, send players back to the chord as scored in their musical composition. Urge your student musicians to transfer the same beautiful sound they played with in the closed position back to the expanded scoring in the literature. Conclusion. The circle of fourths provides an excellent platform to keep ensemble warm-ups goal-driven and productive. By starting simple and slowly expanding a student's knowledge base, they are able to learn the relationships of scales and keys deeper with greater understanding. Music is similar to a pyramid. It needs a strong foundation. Create building blocks of knowledge to build upon this foundation. Take this advice as a means for developing a deeper understanding into how you and your students think about foundational melodic and harmonic relationships. That is all the time we have for today. I want to thank you again for joining me for another episode of the Music Educator Podcast. It is a true pleasure to share this craft with lovers of music and educators just like you. If you found value in today's episode, please feel free to leave a review and rate us on the Music Educator Podcast app, Apple Podcasts, or any other podcast aggregator. Also, please consider supporting the show by becoming an official Music Educator Podcast member or advertise with us on the podcast. Information for this can be found in the show notes. Thank you again for joining us today, and I hope you join us next time. Have a great week, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the Music Educator Podcast. For the latest tips, tricks, and practical advice you can use tomorrow. You can subscribe to our podcast on every podcast aggregator or download the Music Educator app for free in the Apple or Google Play app stores. Furthermore, visit our blog at www.bandbuzz.org for additional music education resources. We will see you on the next episode of the Music Educator Podcast. And remember, music can change the world.
Hey everyone, it's Bill Stevens with the Music Educator Podcast. See this episode's show notes for a unique promo code from the Music Educator Podcast to get up to 2 months of free podcasting service with Libsyn. Get your show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, anywhere you want. Get critical stats to help you grow. Find all the tools and support you need to sound your very best. You can even do video. Really, bring your podcast to life with Libsyn. See show notes for a unique Libsyn promo code and get podcasting.